It is Tuesday, and this time we are doing it via tape. We get to hang out with Tuesdays with Dylan Butler, MLSsoccer.com, to discuss everything that happened in the weekend that was, all the craziness, and everything that we are going to be facing in the weekend that will be. Dylan, as always, thanks for hanging out with us on a Tuesday.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
So, we can talk high school lacrosse too, since I'm the high school guy here on the show. We can
Yeah.
talk high school lacrosse a little later on when we're done. News that came out this morning: Nashville has new owners
Yeah.
that include Derek Henry, Reese Witherspoon, and her husband, Jim Toth, just before the cracking Geodis Open. So Nashville continuing to add new owners. And once again, the athletic aspect and the celebrity aspect coming into this as well.
And I think it's cool. I think it's another one of those situations where it's another NFL player, and Henry in the release said, he's always thought of wanting to be an owner, and this is kind of a perfect marriage for him. And Witherspoon apparently does have the perfect marriage, so they're both going to be in as well. But yeah, listen, they're all. It's one of the cool things about it, I think, is that it's people who call Nashville home, who are reinvesting then in the sporting, in the community. So yeah, like I think it's super cool, and more of an opportunity now when you put on a Nashville game. If it's a national televised game, here's Reese Witherspoon, here's Derrick Henry, right? Like, so it just I think raises the awareness of Nashville, but MLS as a whole, and what a kind of perfect time for it to happen too, right? With their brand new stadium set to open up.
Speaking of athletes and visibility with MLS franchises, let me ask you this. Have you seen the Marshawn Lynch promo involving
Oh, yeah.
Champions League?
Yeah, about 15 to 38 times.
I mean, the promo
That's
itself
cool.
it's straight up money Lynch. I mean, that is what we get when you put a camera and a microphone in front of Marshawn Lynch. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, knowing, I guess, what I thought I was going to be getting into it, but it's a great promo, even if it is NSFW.
How do you think that conversation went, like with that admin or whoever? Like, here's some talking points that we have for you. Like, it's the big game coming up, but listen, you just do what you do. Like,
Well, I think there was one point early on where, if you're looking at Marshawn's face, he looks camera left. He looks screen left to his right, and then I think those are the three words where it's like Champions League final. I think that might have been the only three words scripted in the entire thing, because
yeah,
you see him glance over and get it done. But no, I thought it was perfect for him, perfect for the situation, and really a great promo for MLS, kind of going outside the box a little bit, understanding your talent going into a situation like that with a promo.
100%, right? And you could have probably gone any number of other ways with it, Macklemore or Drew Carey, right? But that would have been more polished. Like, this is perfect.
All right. So speaking of perfect, let's go back into the matches from last weekend and the abject craziness. So let me ask you this: was which, I guess we could go East Coast crazy, West Coast crazy, and break it down that way. East Coast crazy. Which one was crazier? I guess is my question.
It's got to be San Jose, right? Just because of the opponent and because of their situation. That said, though, what we've learned, I guess, from San Jose is it's not the manager, it's the club or the ethos, right? They are the Goonies, and the Goonies never die, and it's highly entertaining, man. Like, you take Almeida out of it, so maybe you don't have the guy with the flowing locks on the sideline, but you still have this always MLS after dark feel with them. So I feel, though, because of the opponent and because of the situation, that was a little bit crazier. Although the funny thing is, with NYCFC and Toronto, even though the venue has been changed, we've kind of come to get used to these matches as well, right? You go back a few years ago, remember, I think it was like Giovinco and Villa were like trading off PKs, and that was a wild match. Funny thing is, I think I watched that match when I was in Atlanta, because I was in Atlanta for the Gold Cup.
Okay.
So, but I remember that one at Yankee Stadium. I was in my hotel room, and it was just like bonkers, right? And this is the same as well in this one. So I would go a slight edge to San Jose, just because of sort of their pecking order and the table and everything they've gone through in Seattle, being on the cusp of making history. But both were highly entertaining. The best part of it was we were able to see both, right? Like, they were separate. They were Saturday, they were Sunday, they were different times. So all of the madness you can consume. You didn't have to sort of, split your screen.
Yeah, so you think you've recovered from one bout of madness, and then you get a second bout of madness. It's
and we're just about set for the third, which will be the Champions League.
you ain't kidding. I know. And okay, so since you brought it up, and Marshawn has got the promo for us.
Yeah.
We look at two legs, and I think the old adage is always true. You can't win it in the first 90, but you can surely lose it in the first 90. What are you looking at in this first 90 minutes, where it should be a cauldron, should be a packed house. I think last time I checked, there's supposed to be 11 billion people in attendance, and they all got tickets within the first half hour that they were available. What kind of a match are you anticipating here? One where Brian Schmetzer, we know they're not going to be intimidated by their surroundings, but one where you manage your way through the 90 to get you home?
So, again, not to kind of bring up the ghosts of Champions League past, right? But
bring up the ghosts of Champions League past.
Well, I was going to say, you go back to like Salt Lake, right? And they maybe were the best example. They go to Mexico away first leg. They scored 2 away goals, right? It's a 2-2 draw. So you're like, they are in good shape, man. They got those away goals. You go back home, and obviously, they didn't score. They concede one, and they lost in the final. But yeah, I think it's a combination of being cautious, especially early, but then also having to be clinical, and you'd love to get take your chances. And if they could somehow get 2 away goals, right? Like, they could be flying as they go back to Seattle and be in really good shape. So it's kind of that delicate balance of being strong defensively, but also, realizing that the away goal is so critical.
And you're looking at a team right now in Pumas. They won't have Dineno from all indications to help out in the first leg. They aren't setting the world on fire heading into their last match in the Clausura. Right now, they're in the last playoff spot. They've lost 2 in a row. You got folks chasing you from behind, and I know that the focus for them is, I assume, the focus for, just as much the focus for Seattle and chasing after Champions League. But this is not a team in Pumas that is setting the world on fire right now.
For sure, but I think, again, Seattle are a veteran enough team. And remember, too, Largoé was part of that Salt Lake experience, right? For that first foray into the Champions League final, where they know not to, look past them or think that they've got this big edge. They don't even want to be called the favorite, even though a lot of people are saying Seattle are the favorite. So still a dangerous side, and they also realize as well, right? Like, Mexican teams, I think throughout the history of this have had to sort of toe that line, because so much is put on their league. And as we've seen, managers get fired after one bad result, right?
Yeah,
so there's such a carousel there. So, it's balancing the importance, but I think like their team now, considering where they are, they're putting all their eggs right now into this basket, right? So it's 2 legs. They've got to get it. And so much is on the line. I still think that maybe a little more pressure is on Seattle, just because it's never been done before in MLS, right? So they'll have that backing of the fans of the league, except probably for those in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
But with that also comes that pressure and the realization that they're chasing history, and realizing that, these teams before them have gotten so close, but just haven't gotten over that finish line.
So, but I mean, then let me present it to you this way. They've lost 2 in a row heading into this match. It was, yes, a heavily rotated side against Inter Miami, and then you lose a bonkers match to San Jose at PayPal. How difficult do you think it is to block out the fact that they themselves have lost 2 in a row going into this match? Yes, knowing that everything is important, and yes, you're chasing after a first time. It seems like pressure is coming from different directions for both sides in this match, and they're both kind of limping their way into this one.
Yeah, and John, too, you can go back to that second leg, I think, in the Champions League as well, where NYCFC, obviously they had to chase the match, right? But they were for a good portion the better team there as well. And Seattle were reeling, right? Like they were, you could make the argument, a little bit fortunate to escape that second leg because of the way NYCFC played. Now, that being said, they'll need to go back to that first leg where it was the best version of Seattle, of this Seattle that I think we've ever seen, right? So they'll need to replicate that. But I think also what's good, you would think or hope for them, is you can get lessons from these losses, right? Like the San Jose game, you heard Schmetzer talk about it, about, being checked out for a period of time and not matching intensity and like all those things. Obviously you need to do that against a Mexican side, especially on their home turf. So I'm not so concerned about their form. Hoping, obviously, like I said, that the lessons are learned as they go into this tricky 2-leg series.
All right, so then let me get into other teams that we might be concerned about. How concerned are you now about New England, considering they lose 3-2, and then you have your star player basically venting his spleen and any other body part imaginable at an assistant coach during a match?
Not good looks, right? Yeah, listen. So the funny thing is, you go back to last year, right? And they set the MLS record for points, and they flame out in the playoffs, right? At first asking. So I guess the question is just like, who are these Revs, right? Are they that team last year and they just through a difficult spell? Or have they been this team all along and they just super, overachieved a year ago, right? So I think it's an identity crisis a little bit, at least on the outside, trying to figure out who these guys are. Now, there's certainly really talented players. I've said it before on this show. They don't have great depth, right? And I think an injury here, a knock there, a suspension there, like they don't recover from those things. And similar with their goalkeeping situation, it's not been good. But I was one of those who, I wasn't a believer as they were accumulating all these points last year. And like, I'm not trying to be a Revs hater, right? But I don't think, like, when the previous teams who set these points records, right? Red Bull, they had a couple of year stretch, right, where they pushed it to the Eastern Conference Final, where Atlanta obviously went on and won. They made it to the Champions League semifinals, and they won 2 Supporters Shields in like 3 or 4 years, right? So they had that consistency over a few years. LAFC, similar, right? Like, they had the look of a team that you could see, yes, they are absolutely the best in the league, and they have pushed that way again now. But I don't know, man. Like, are the Revs just sort of like a one-hit wonder? It's again, you give them, the excuse maybe of the Champions League at the start of the year and Turner being injured, but how long do you ride that horse, right?
Well, and then considering how you take that Champions League exit and just ever since Champions League, it's just been like,
right.
And for those in audio, that's literally it has been.
But how separated are they from the? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can give them that hangover from the Champions League for the next, match or two.
Yeah, exactly.
Not this far after they had that incredible loss.
So are they Bow Wow Wow, Nana, or Marillion in your mind? Are they a one hit wonder?
I kind of lean that way, to be honest. I guess we'll find out going forward, right? Like, um, again, they do have a guy in Carlos Heel who's one of the best in the league. There's no doubt about it, right? So they've got forwards who and Buxa and Bo who can score at any minute, and at least for the next 4 or 5 hours, they've got one of the best keepers in the league when he's healthy. So it's other than that, dare I say, they're an average team, right? Other than those guys.
And you look at, and then I'll go to two other average teams here at the moment, Columbus and Sporting. And I imagine for the
or below average.
Yeah, well, and I imagine for the audio technicians doing the game for television that it was probably a field day for them. But it's just, I think, outside of Peter Vermees's slipping pirouette on the touchline, these two teams, they're still a part of that group where you're just kind of sitting there, you're expecting more, you're wanting more, and they ain't giving it to you. It's a bit of a painful look right now when you're looking at these two teams. I know we've spent a lot of time on Sporting Kansas City this season so far, but now Columbus isn't scoring. They finally got rid of Jossie Zardes and sent him to Colorado, which was long overdue in my estimation, in just sending Jossie someplace, either use him or send him, and they finally did the latter. But you have two teams right here that traditionally there are a lot of higher expectations, and they ain't giving them to you right now.
Yeah, no. And I don't know the answer either, right? Like it feels like you need fresh ideas, right? Yeah. Like it's teams that are just playing the same way and really not changing things up, and it's not working, right? So it's just sort of like, they've got the car and they just keep turning the key, but it's not starting, right? It's not igniting.
You got to fix the alternator on both of these franchises, is what you're saying.
Perhaps. And again, too, every team has it, certainly. You work your way through it, but they've both had to deal with obviously some injuries as well. But yeah, I mean, and it's funny with Columbus too. It's like, if you follow sort of the Porter, his career, right? Like, it's like you win the cup, you miss the playoffs, but then you bounce back and you have a big year. You know what I mean? Like, so
he's the Brett Saberhagen of MLS, is what you're saying.
But this is supposed to be his bounce back year. Yeah. It's not. There's no bounce in the Crew right now, which, I suppose, to follow that analogy, if there's no bounce right now and that continues, then maybe he'll get bounced, right? So,
true.
Yeah, I mean, two teams who, in their best form are obviously cup contenders. They can push for the Shield. And right now, both are below the playoff line. Really, you're not really seeing how they're going to climb out of that, which is disturbing for both.
Yeah, and I think Peter Vermes, though, has earned the capital to call his own shot. And you would think that if he knows that it gets to a point of no return, that he would step aside. I know that we're talking down the line here a little bit, but just the notion of Peter Vermes, with all of the capital that he has gained in Kansas City, has earned the right to call his own shot.
Yeah, but I think also he's got to again, kind of, I think he's stuck in his ways in a lot. So I think he's got to, maybe, I don't know if it's fresh ideas or just fresh bodies or whatever it is. They need something there, because he can use the Polito injury as his crutch, but they should still be better than they are. And as we've said, kind of ad nauseum, it's more the 6 than the 9, I think, and that seemingly was a self-inflicted wound when you just let Ilie go to one of your rivals.
And we've talked a lot about Austin this year, and Austin continues. And I'll phrase it this way. And I know that, if there are folks who follow Austin, they'll sit there and they might wag their index finger at me a little bit. But I think this season, Austin is beating the teams that they are supposed to beat.
Yes.
And so I think that, it's great that they've won 3 in a row. They're second in the West, but they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat, which to me means by the end of it, if you're beating the teams that you're supposed to beat and not beating the teams that are supposed to be better than you, you're going to be in that 7, 8, 9 discussion right now. But obviously the returns at Q2, hey, they've won 3 in a row.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And you love how they bounce back off of the Open Cup ouster, right? So another sign, I think, of a club maturing. But they've got it going, and it's funny. I wrote a piece for MLSsoccer.com, and it's crazy to think, but possibly Maxi Urruti could be that X factor, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's the guy who's kind of lived this nomadic experience in Major League Soccer. He's tasted the barbecue at 3 different spots in Texas right now.
He is the living version of Copa Tejas, is what you're saying.
100%. Right. They should when he retires, he should be the trophy, right? Like, but they, but when you hear, it's kind of a combination here, right? Like, he's because probably of his background and he's Argentinian, Jerisi's Argentinian, so they immediately mesh. Fagundes works well with them as well. And then you hear the conversation, like you hear like a Brad Stuver, who is absolutely a straight shooter, talk about how, he's brought this, he's made a good locker room even better. Right. And we would hear it too back in LGP's days, with Atlanta. They're having these like barbecues at the facility, and he's making,
baby.
Yeah. And like he and like Felipe Martins are kind of like having like this cook off like between Brazil and Argentina. But he lightens up the room. And one thing that I didn't really think of, and it's obviously not unique to Austin, but it is a little bit in the sense that they were an expansion team a year ago, right? So they were bringing all these guys together for the first time to mesh as teammates, but they were doing it in a COVID year, right? When you really couldn't have a lot of gatherings and everything that kind of comes with it. This year, though, with loosening restrictions, they have that opportunity, and they're making the most of it. And I think, again, when you've got a cohesive locker room that likes each other, and I've seen it, with both the Red Bulls and with NYCFC, especially with NYCFC over the years, I think it tends to lead to results, right? So I think it's one of those off the field things that can aid on the field success.
All right. So since you mentioned NYCFC, we'll circle back to their 9-goal madness here really, really quickly.
Yeah.
You look at Toronto and Toronto, and then all of a sudden it's like the wall just falls down and then they have to come back. I mean, it's just, you look at Toronto and you look at NYCFC, and I mean, it brings different things to the table with this 9-goal thriller, but I think that it continues to reinforce the fact that Toronto can be exposed and they've got a lot of work to do. And Bob Bradley wants to bring in aging Italian players in the summer to help this out.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I don't think that's the answer on the backside of things, right? Like I do like, what they're going to bring in the midfield and how that's going to help them. But two things I'll say about that match is one, the funny thing too, and I love it about Ronny Deila is, listen, I'm sure after the match and you break down the film and you look at things, you see these defensive things and you want to fix things and obviously you want to keep clean sheets, but he also wants to play like an entertaining game, right? So he'll take a 5-4, like he loves it, and I think if you're a fan, not just of NYCFC, but MLS as well, like you like that as well, right? Like for a manager not afraid to push the pace at all times and just kind of go full bore, and it obviously leads to really entertaining matches. And that's what is ultimately what these teams are looking to try to do. Yes, they want to win, but they want to entertain as well. The second thought I had from it was watching it was, this is going to be maybe sacrilegious to say for NYCFC fans, but I thought it looked a lot better at Citi Field. Just the optics of it on TV, like so much better. So, I don't know, you take that, again, they as a club have obviously had to unfortunately live a nomadic experience as well because of their stadium situation. But I just thought the look on TV and everything, like it looked so much better at Citi Field than it does at Yankee Stadium.
Did they get rid of the one camera position where the guy wire down the third baseline obstructed the shot at points?
Yeah, no, I didn't see. Yeah, I think they didn't have that. I didn't see anyone low. It was a high shot mostly, and they had a great crowd, in Queens, and yeah, I mean, look, they know they can't play all their home games at one venue. They certainly would like to avoid the embarrassment, I guess, of playing at Red Bull Arena.
Yeah.
So I think Citi Field is a great option. And, as a Queens native, I've always said, they need to revisit that, I think, as a club, that vicinity, like the Willets Point area there where the Mets play, to maybe build their stadium. Because especially in Queens, the fan base, there's so many soccer fans, right? Like the 7 train line that goes through Queens and right into Citi Field. At every stop, like there's different cultures that love soccer. You've got your Colombians and Ecuadorians and Argentinians and Mexicans, and like you go the park that also surrounds Citi Field, Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, on any given day, and especially on the weekend, it's almost all soccer, right? Like it's a massive, huge park. The music's going, like it's such a party, and it's to me the perfect venue, the perfect place to put that stadium. But I get off my soapbox.
Would they be able to have a championship banner at Citi Field or at a new stadium complex in Queens that would be larger than the current one that they have positioned in the Bronx?
Did you see what they did though? They have behind the goal, like along the outfield wall now, it says like champions. Like they expanded that out. Yes, yeah. I mean, look, I think what they wanted to get from the Yankees as a partner, which was largely maybe using some of their pull as a longtime sports franchise in New York to get them a stadium, hasn't happened. City Football Group doesn't lack money. We know that. So, I don't know. My personal opinion, I think they'd almost be better off just divorcing from the Yankees and going off on their own and getting the stadium in Queens. Because again, too, right? Like, how are they going to try to build the stadium in Queens when they still have Yankees ownership when it's in the Mets, like, backyard? Yeah. So maybe the Mets owner, right, gets involved. Who knows?
There you go. Dylan Butler, MLSsoccer.com, hanging out with us for another couple of minutes here for his Tuesday visit here at SDH. Champions League, really quickly. What do you think? I know that the two home sides going into this week in the first leg's big favorites, Manchester City and Liverpool. What do you
that Champions League?
Yes, that Champions.
One.
We've already talked about the one with Money Lynch, the other one, the European version. Yeah. What do you think about that one?
You know what? I'm going to be dead honest, John. Like, I haven't even been able to wrap my brain around that. Like,
good. Then I'll ask you about Jossie Zardes in Colorado. What do you think?
Honestly, love it. Love it. Right. Like, I feel like probably behind closed doors, that was a move that I think Jossie he had to have forced, right? Like, he's a guy who is, for all his haters, he has a lot of qualities for a guy who maybe if he's not going to be the starter, he's still kind of a fringe guy. He's played for Berhalter, right? So he's got that chance of being on the roster. But he needs to play. And we all know that, right? Like, you've got to play in a World Cup year. So he's got that opportunity now in Colorado, where he obviously lost it to Miguel Barry in Columbus. So I think it's a good chance for him. He does a lot of running off the ball and a lot of other things other than just scoring. But I think it's a perfect marriage, right? Like Colorado needed a 9, Jossie needed the play, so you put them together. It's chocolate and peanut butter.
Two great tastes that go great together. We know
that's
this.
At least the hope for them.
Yes, and considering my freezer has like 11 billion different Reese's mutations in it. Oh, seriously.
Don't get me started.
Oh, dude. I mean, the boss, and God love her. What she wanted to do for the Easter holiday was try to come up with as many different versions of Reese's as possible and give them to me in one bag, knowing full well that they were going to be headed to the freezer. Did you know, and I didn't know this, that Reese's actually has gone, you know how the two-dimensional Easter egg, the one that they've always done, the flat pressed egg that is like God's gift to snacking. They've actually gone 3-dimensional now, and they actually have an actual egg. It looks like the Cadbury cream egg, except that it is Reese's content now.
I am not ashamed to say that I am aware of that.
I was not, and she surprised me with the 12-pack of it, and then I'm like, oh my God. This is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So I have the mini 2-dimensionals. I have the 2-dimensional hard pressed eggs. I have the 3-dimensional full eggs now, and then the miniatures. All of them are housed in our freezer. We have no room for anything else except for like steaks, chicken, pork, and Reese's. That is all that is in our freezer right now.
I think you get all the food groups right there.
That is true. Considering that for me, it is usually plastic, takeout, preservatives, and anything but vegetables. Those are my 4 food groups traditionally. That's just usually how it works. What's going on with MLSsoccer.com? What are you working on these days?
Yeah, man, it's busy as usual, right? We've obviously a lot of Champions League content and the week coming up. And, last week there were 2 managers, right, who parted ways is the wording.
The black cloud is away from San Jose now is what you're saying.
So yeah, man, it's and before we know it, the next round of the Open Cup is coming up, right? So it never stops.
Dylan Butler, MLSsoccer.com. Dylan_Butler on the Twitters. Dylan, as always, great to have you for the Tuesday visits to break down everything from your perspective in MLS and beyond. Thanks for hanging out with us here on SDH. We'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, can't wait.